Magic is one of the ideas in the course that can be really misunderstood. So let's start off with some statements the course makes um, about magic. Very early on in the text, actually in chapter 1 in the principles of miracles, um, he talks about magic. And he says that miracles bear witness to truth. They are convincing because they arise from conviction. Without conviction, they deteriorate into magic, which is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather the uncreative use of mind. So magic is defined there as the uncreative use of mind. Um, in the next chapter, he says the whole distortion that made magic rests on the belief that there is a creative ability in matter which the mind cannot control. Magic is the mindless or the miscreative use of mind. One of the ways in which you can correct the magic miracle confusion is to remember that you did not create yourself. Okay, all magic is an attempt at reconciling the irreconcilable. And he also says magic will cure all of your pain. It's the missing factor in your madness that makes it, quote, sane. So when we explore the idea of magic, how it operates, um, I think it can be helpful to view magic um, as the idea that something outside of us can bring happiness and peace to us. So magic rests on the idea of separation being real. Without the separation, there'd be no need for magic because there'd be no need for something else than what is. In truth, love, heaven, and God, there is no need. There's no uh, issue that could need curing. There's no issue that could need a magical solution. Um, so when we're looking at the idea, I'm going to use as an example um, weight, physical weight. Uh, Partly because we're so bombarded these days with weight loss drugs. It seems like they're everywhere that you turn, they're being pushed and peddled. Um, so it seems very timely. So we'll start off with believing there is upset about weight. Um, so maybe it's experienced as a lifelong struggle. It is a special relationship we have with our body. We can feel guilty about weight. We can blame weight on our parents, society, the medical profession, um, God. Uh, so we can use weight as the issue from which we try to turn to magical things to fix it. And we could either be addressing being overweight, underweight, or just not being happy with the way that our bodies look. Um, so let's say we're focusing on losing weight to solve our upset, as though it gave birth to upset inside of us, our appearance. So we use or try to use something outside of us, pills, injections, programs, um, specialty diets, and they either seem to work or they don't. So we can call that magic. We're trying to take something that is outside of us to fix something that we feel within us. So first we have to blame something outside of us for our upset, and then we have to look to for a solution to that thing outside of us that upset us. The solution is outside of us as well. So that's magic. So the mistake is not in utilizing anything that seems to be a part of the world to cure our upset. That is not the mistake. The mistake is in believing something outside of me can bring happiness and peace to me. So I'll have to believe that if I see the upset is being caused by something outside of me. I'm never upset for the reason I think, because uh, I'm always, in identifying with my ego, I'm blaming something outside of me for the way that I feel. And um, trying to avoid acknowledging the true cause of upset, willingness to be separate, a belief in separation. So the mistake is never something that's in form. Like you'll hear a lot of times Ken would say, don't refuse to go to the doctor. If you need your appendix out, go get your appendix out. So it's a very practical level. But the only way an issue with whether or not you go to a doctor or not is being meaningful. The whole premise of the answer of yes, go to a doctor is that um, the question about whether or not to go to a doctor is a cover over the issue. It actually speaks to you already believe in separation. You're already afraid of what's happening. Otherwise, whether or not you go to a doctor wouldn't even arise as the issue because it's not what the body does. It's who you're doing it with. So the mistake is never, the magic in the mistake is never in going to the doctor. It's not in whether or not you get an injection. It's not whether you follow some kind of program in your life. The mistake can only be made at the level of the mind. Magic can only be made at the level of the mind because it is a belief. The idea that magic can cure your pain and it is the missing factor in your madness. That belief is the problem, and not anything that seems to happen in a world of illusion. Who cares what illusory dream figures are doing? Who cares whether or not they're at a doctor? The only mind that cares whether or not a dream figure goes to another dream figure and does anything is the mind that believes in illusions, that has already made them real, that is defending the separation and actively proving it was real in where this is our reality. So all magical thoughts are the same. They have the same premises. I'm a body, I am separated, I'm vulnerable, and I am not safe. Because what is safe would never need to turn to magic. It's those premises that need to be questioned, not what we believe equals magic in form, because everything in form equals magic. The idea that we have eyes that actually see things is magical. That we move about in this world, that would be considered magic. So there's no way to parse out in the world what equals magic and what doesn't equal magic. So it might seem, oh, I'm going to take this magic elixir and my body is going to be healed. That is one form, but the only game in town is forms of magic, and what is not real is and what is an hallucination. You can't separate out pieces of hallucination and call them this piece of the hallucination over here is different, has different qualities than this hallucination over here. They're all made up of the same stuff, and none of it's real. So we have to question the premises that magical thoughts rest on. That's the whole purpose of a course, to raise a question about what we believe was true. We believe we're a body. We do think our eyes see. We do think our ears hear. We think we have some agency. The real question is, what am I? Which is hidden by getting lost in magical thoughts about, whether or not I should do X, Y, or Z as a body in a world, and whether or not that's magic. And what do I do if that guy over there seems to be engaging in magical thoughts? And if someone else's, he makes this point, I believe, in the manual for teachers, if you get upset over someone else's magical thoughts, you're reinforcing the separation for both of you. So the question is, what am I? If I'm a body, I believe in magic. So who cares what a shadow thinks, says, or does? It doesn't matter. So it doesn't really matter what the body seems to do. If I feel upset, I take a Xanax or a warm bath, or I eat comfort food, or I reach out to another body because I'm upset. Um, I will I will only feel guilty if I use those things um, to prove to myself that something outside of me can hurt me or help me. Um, so if I use if I use what the body seems to do to prove to me separation happened, something outside of me can hurt me or help me, um, that is simultaneously proving to me God was murdered, oneness was killed off, um, and reinforces this idea that we're separated um, from love. We can't get back what we threw away. It reinforces separation, which reinforces despair, um, sin, guilt, and fear, and reinforces the terror within us. So, in any given instant, we're choosing between miracles and murder. You could say we're choosing between miracles and magic. The miracle does nothing but remind the mind that what it sees is false. What I think is operating, what I believe is the truth about myself, about the world, about God, is not true. And the miracle reminds me of that. So everything always appears magical in the world because everything always appears separate. I wanted to um, just mention some other quotes about magic. Let's see. In psychotherapy, purpose, process, practice, um, he talks about magic in terms of the relationship with the therapist. The only real therapist is Jesus, and we're the crazy ones. So, in defending what we made, the defenses we use must be magic because the separation never happened. So all of our defenses are magical, and they don't actually operate. They only seem to operate um, by our belief in them and our desire for them. So this is kind of funny. I used to think about, well, I'm too heavily defended. I can't let any light in because of my defenses, as though they operated separate and apart from me. And they weren't operating solely because I wanted them to seem to operate. That's my appeal to magic. Um, Defenses sought for must be magical. He makes that point in the process of psychotherapy. That's magic's purpose, to make illusions true through false perception. We made up eyes so that eyes could look outside and eyes could perceive. Well, there's no reason to look outside unless you're going to perceive something. And what do we see through these sightless holes for eyes? We see exactly what we want to see, following perception's law. I see it because I believe it, and I believe it because I want it to be true. And Jesus is gently telling us that was a mistake. That hasn't made you happy. And now we're going to raise all of the premises upon which you stand to question and show you another way. What if? There's some what ifs in the course. What if you're wrong about that? What if things aren't the way they seem? What if it's all been very purposive? It's purposive to prove something to you. So why does all of this terrify us so much? Because I think all of us would really readily say, I want to be happy. I want to awaken. I want to accept the atonement for myself. I want to experience the love of God. So he has to guide us to the place where we can see that beneath this face of innocence that thinks it longs for something, that thinks it wants to awaken, is an angry, murderous self that wants to exist, even if it's at the expense of oneness in God and the Christ within. And there is nothing and no one we won't hurt in order to exist. So we can't see the dedication to the hateful little kind of corruption of goodness, self, little s self we made. That is what we don't want to look at. We don't want to see, we don't want to look in that mirror and see the ego that we are. But when we look with Jesus, we see that it's nothing. We've made it something by our refusal to look at it. We fear what we deny in ourselves, and we project what we deny in ourselves. Those are, laws of the mind. That what I deny, I project. I don't want to, if I don't want to see it in myself, I'm going to see it in you. And that is the carefully contrived plan that holds this unstable world together. We don't really have a stable sense of self. We seem to be at the mercy of forces beyond our control. So the process of the course is to look, wait, and quietly do nothing. We must look at the ego before we can let it go. We can't let go of something we're not acknowledging within ourselves. And what we need to acknowledge within ourselves is that the murderous hatred, that the murderousness and the hatred that we seem to see outside of ourselves. We seem to see guilt all around us. That started with us. So I think in the course, there's I might mix up the quote, but it's something like, the specialness you see in him, whatever's outside of you, in hate, specialness that you see in him, and it looked on you first and hated you first. But that hatred has to get projected out, and we think we hate something outside of ourselves. We can only hate ourselves. Not for the truth in us, but for what we made of it when we denied truth. So it seems to be we go through a series of stages. And what the Course repeats is that you're not going alone. You are not alone. You can't be alone. When we look within alone, we become afraid. And we will rush to darkness. We will rush to project out guilt as fast as we can. And there's no shortage of images to project it onto. So magic is nothing and nowhere. It's like the ego. It is just an idea that we use to prove we did the impossible. Oneness is no more. God is no more. And now what we have is the idea that I must find something outside of me to bring peace and happiness to me. And it follows the laws of chaos. Well, I think the only thing to really remember when you think you're upset over any magical thought is that magic does not do anything. It is a seeming like everything else in the world. Everything in the world is magical because it's not real. It is what did I say? The miscreative use of the mind. The mind can't really miscreate. It can only deny the truth and seem to. The uncreative use of the mind is another way of saying the denial of truth. Magic is mindless. And when we take the hand of Jesus and we look at what we're doing, what we seem to be doing, what we seem to be, what we have made of ourselves, what we have made of the truth, when we look on those things, we are reminded that we have a mind. And the miracle reminds the mind that what it sees is false. The miracle reminds us we have a mind. Miracles transcend the body. It's the miracle we want, and not magic. So thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. I think I'll close with uh, a quote from the Principles of Miracles, Chapter 1. You are a miracle, capable of creating in the likeness of your Creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real.